Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we've got a case for your Veritas setup blocks. Now, for those of you who have watched the show for any length of time, you know that I love my Veritas setup blocks. And they're a great little item for setting up tools, for spacing out glue-ups, just anything, testing dados. They're just a wonderful little tool, and I really love them. But if you have the main pack, then chances are at some point in time you went out and you bought the expansion pack. And here's the problem. You've got two separate cases now. All your main ones are here and all of your odd ones are here. So if you want a 1/4 inch spacer block or setup block, you need this case. But if you need a 3/16, you need this case. So it can be a bit of a pain in the butt. And I had a viewer that made a comment on the show that said, you know what, why not a case to put them all in? And I thought, why the heck didn't I think of this before? And that's what we're going to work on today. And it all starts off with some 1/4 inch thick stock over at the bench and a little bit of layout. Well, what we're going to start off with is some 1/4 inch thick hardboard. And this piece measures 5 3/8 by 6 3/8. And the very first thing that I want to do is I need to mark out the recesses or the holes for my blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in all the way around at 7/16 of an inch. Now this will be my border that will allow for dado recess all the way around into the walls of our box, but as well will also leave an air gap between our setup blocks and the wall of our case. So the next thing that I want to do at this point is we need to set up for our 1 2 3 block. And that 1 2 3 block is going to sit right in this corner. But I want to allow for a 1/16 inch excess of each block to give it some wiggle room in there, and you'll understand why a little after. So if we take our 7/16 plus our 3 1/16, that is going to give us 3 1/2 inches. And then we need to do our 2 inch side, and for that 7/16 plus 2 1/16 is 2 1/2. Just like that. So this area right here, this is our space for our 1 2 3 block. So we can put that aside. Now I have arranged here all of our larger blocks. So I have this from the largest and then going all the way down to 1/2 inch. And then these ones here, I have from 1/32, the smallest setup block, all the way up to 15/32. So these are 2 inches wide all the way across. But as I said, I want 1/16 of an inch of wiggle room there. So I need to place a line that will be at 2 1/16 in from our edge. So 2 1/16 plus our 7/16 on the edge is 2 1/2. And I will do that from both sides because there will be one set of blocks here and one set of blocks here. And that will give us a 1/4 of an inch gap in between. We need to allow for our blocks. That would be these ones right here, the larger of our group. And this larger group of blocks actually takes up a span of 3 1/16 inches all the way across. So we are going to place that mark now. We want them right here. So 3 1/16 plus 7/16 is 3 1/2 inches. And we will place that mark right there. And this is now the cutout for these blocks. And we can do the same thing for these ones, except they span a measurement here of 2 3/4. 7/16 plus 2 3/4 is 3 3/16. And again, we can just line it up and place our mark. And this will be the cutout for our smaller blocks. Now we have this bare space here, and I didn't want to waste it, but I do have these smaller Veritas setup blocks. So for this, we're going to need 1 1/16 right here for their width. So that will be 1 1/2, because we have to add our 7/16 of our border. Right there, 1 1/2. So the whole width of these guys all the way across actually works out to be 1 9/16. So we will draw a line there at 2 inches, which will accommodate our border and our pieces. And those are the 4 cutouts to house all of our blocks. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do them at the scroll saw. I'm going to cut each of these cutouts out in order to give us the space we need for our setup blocks. And at this point, I guess I'll end up testing and seeing how well I ended up marking and measuring all of these. Just make sure that they all fit the way that you want them to. So there we go, there's those, and then the last ones will be these. We now need another piece of 1/4 inch MDF. It will be the same dimensions as what this one is. So 5 3/8 by 6 3/8. And what we are going to do is take this one and we are going to glue it onto here, making sure that all of our edges line up perfectly. So we basically will be making the bottom of our case. So glue these together like this, clamp it up, and let it completely dry. Well, for the walls of our case, I have some 3/8 inch thick walnut. And the very first thing I want to do on the interior bottom surface is 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom. I want to run a 1/2 inch wide dado all the way along the length of each piece. And those dados will be 3/16 of an inch deep. Now I have all my pieces dadoed here. Yes, I have 5 for a 4-sided box. 1 is for oopses in case I should mess up. And those dados will house our base. So at this point now, we want to head over to the table saw, and using our miter fence and a fine crosscut blade, we will miter all of our pieces of our box to fit our base insert. And with a dry fit, everything is looking good. The miters are good. Everything fits well in there. There's not too much slop on your base inside the dados. And once you're happy with that, we can now trim our pieces here till their final height. And what that final height is, it's going to be 1/4 of an inch higher than the highest block. In this case, the highest block is our 1, 2, 3. So one of the easiest ways to get that mark is to pull out your 1/4 inch setup block, sit it on top of your 1, 2, 3 block, and just place a pencil line across the top of it on the edge of your board. We will then take a measurement, and whatever that measurement is, we will rip those boards at the table saw to that width, and that will be the final height of our case. Now that I'm happy with the height of my case, there is one thing that I want to do before I glue it together, and that is I want to take it apart and take out this hardboard insert. I want to seal it, and then I'm going to apply flocking to that base. Once we get that done, I'll come back and see you, and we can carry on from there. Well, truth be told, it's been a week since I filmed anything on this project, because in the meantime, I wanted to get our base flocked. As well, using contact cement, I've also adhered some walnut veneer onto the bottom of our base, and that will give the, I guess, illusion that this is solid walnut. Now, because of that, that was an afterthought on my part. So I'd had to widen our dado just a touch, just the thickness of our veneer. So now we can glue our box together. I will caution you here, go sparingly on the glue. You don't want to get your squeeze out inside on your flocking. So go sparingly on the glue, glue your case together, and let it completely dry. Once our case is dry, I will use my spline cutting jig. I'll place a link to that below if you're interested. And I will cut some slots to add some contrasting wood splines. From there, we can just glue them in place, let them dry, and then cut them flush, sand them, and that is pretty much our case complete, and we can move on to our lid. So for the lid, I want to use this piece of curly maple. It wasn't wide enough, so I had to laminate two pieces together to be able to get a piece that was wide enough. But I'm going to cut it over at the table saw so that it's just slightly larger than the dimensions of our box. Now over at the table saw, I'm going to set a dado blade, and I'm going to set it so that it is 7/32 above the table. And we are going to carefully cut on each of our lengths here a dado, and we're just going to kind of creep up on it until we get our lid to fit into our gap or into the interior dimensions of our case. And once you get that done, you're happy with the fit, we are going to do the exact same thing with our opposite side. Now, sometimes when you make boxes, they can have little quirky things. They can be a tiny bit out of square, a little bit misshapen, and that is why I made this lid a little larger. What I've done is I've placed a little bit of masking tape just along the inside edge of each one of our four sides, and that is to get our lid to have a nice, snug, tight fit. I don't want any slop or any play at all. There's still a little play end to end there, so I'm going to add another strip of tape and then get our lid put on nice and secure. And now, using a flush trim cut bit, I'm going to actually use our case as the guiding edge to trim our lid to the exact dimension of our case, starting with the end grain and then doing the long grain afterwards. And now, using a low angle block plane and my chamfer guide that I demonstrated here on the show not too long ago, I'm just going to put a nice 45-degree chamfer on all four edges of our lid. And at this point now, we can give the entire thing its last sanding. We'll apply a finish, and then we can place our setup blocks into our case. And there you have it. A case for your Veritas setup blocks. Guys, this is a gorgeous project. It really is. The combination and the contrast between the walnut and then the maple splines, as well as that spalted curly maple top, is absolutely beautiful. And that flocking, the blue flocking inside, just gives it that extra little professional touch. If you guys have not tried flocking on some of your projects yet, what are you waiting for? I mean, you're going from, this was nothing more than a piece of hardboard, and it comes out looking so professional. That walnut veneer on the bottom just made all the difference in the world and gave the impression of solid walnut, but really, we all know because we saw the video, it's hardboard with a walnut veneer and flocking on the top. Now, if you don't have walnut veneer, don't sweat it. What you can do is that top layer that you're going to flock anyway, make that out of hardboard and make the bottom layer out of walnut, and then you don't have to worry about it. It's a win-win either way. Now mix and match it up, guys. You don't have to do walnut and curly maple like what I did here today. You can use cherry, mahogany, poplar. Heck, you could even do it in pine. It depends on what your availability is for different stocks and what you personally want for your case. Don't make it exactly like mine. Just mix it up. Make your own interior. Make your own version. Just whatever you do, just make it. Bottom line, guys, this is a wonderful project and I hope you like it, and I hope you're going to try this one, because honestly, we went from these plastic things here to this here, and what a difference a finish makes, let me tell you. So guys, really, give this a try and get all your setup blocks into that one case. I want to thank you guys for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I want to thank you guys for the suggestion. This is something that, I don't know why, it never really came to my mind to do it, but I've made cases before here on the show. I've really loved doing it because the end result is so fantastic. So I don't know why this one never came to my mind, but I'm glad that you guys gave me the push and the suggestion I needed to get it done, because it really is beautiful. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. You click the bell and then you won't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week, guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. I hope you're going to try this for yourself. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.